Welcome back to another episode of Palisade Radio. This is your host, Colin Patel. Returning guest on the program today is Mr. Eric Sprott. Last time we spoke to Eric was at our Jekyll Island conference in the fall of last year. Eric, welcome back to the program.
Hey, Colin, good to be here. A lot of water under the bridge in the meantime and some very exciting things that have happened, so lots to chat about.
Yeah, you've been continuing to have a very exciting time from picking the right plays to get involved in, but we were just speaking before hitting record here about is this really a bull market? It sure seemed like one starting in January of 2016, but unprecedented in terms of how long we've been sitting here going sideways.
Yeah, I guess for the average guy it's been depressing, I would say, because it would seem that there's a lot going on in the industry, including improving earnings, great exploration in various places, and by and large the major indices have done nothing. But there are outliers that have done incredibly well, which I think suggests that there's a continuing element of bullishness there. I mean, I just point to Kirkland, which you're very aware has went up whatever 150% last year. So there's something left out there. There's some gas in the tank. We've had some good results with Novo in the exploration side. So no, I think we're still in a bull market, and of course I have every reason to think that we should be in a bull market because of the craziness going on economically, the printing of money, the low interest rates, the hardly any economic recovery, notwithstanding the big tax cut in the States and the low interest rates. So I've never been much of a believer in the sort of economic recovery scenario that everyone has been painting here, because it's all been based on sort of actions that can't be sustaining in the long run. So anyway, we'll see what happens. I think people are well warranted to be in the precious metals area.
Eric, thinking back to a couple years ago in terms of sentiment in the market, at the time, nothing really felt like a bull market was coming, aside from the fact that we had gone down for so long and so far. Whereas right now, you can look at a lot of things like the commodity prices are quite strong. Copper, nickel, vanadium, all at 52-week highs, and gold's looking pretty good too on a long-term chart. So it seems like a lot of things are there to make this kick off into a real bull market.
Yeah, and I might add lead, zinc, nickel. As you say, gold's been going up for 2 years in a row, even though it doesn't feel like it. Lithium. I mean, there's all sorts of interesting things going on in the commodities area, and there's been some big moves in a lot of these commodity stocks. With the lithium stocks went crazy. I presume that things like vanadium, nickel's picking up a lot of steam here. So there's action out there for sure, and there's people watching and acting. So I think if somebody comes up with something significant, they'll get a great following in the market.
Maybe nobody has the answer to this question, but I figure I'll ask you, what do you think is required to kick us into the next step up in this bull market where these exploration companies all start to run? Or does it just kind of happen with no rhyme or reason?
Well, I think a couple of things are most likely to kick it off, and one of them is sort of already in place, and that was the decline of interest in cryptocurrencies, because it was taking huge amounts of money, speculative money, away from what is a speculative investment, which is mining. So, and that's cooled out a lot here, considering that some of these currencies are down 70 to 90%. So that might, I don't want to say it's over, but it's got lots of signs of not picking its head back up here. And of course, the other thing would be a decline in the stock market, a general decline in the stock market / economy, or economy then the stock market. And that could happen at any time. We've made no progress so far this year, tech stocks in the States. So it's kind of showing signs that it might want to roll over here. But I think those two things would be the critical ones, which make people have to vote, well, how can I make money if stocks generally are not going up? And that's a good environment where people start thinking about other assets like gold and silver and other metals for that matter. So I think those are the ingredients we need.
Eric, Novo recently put bulk sample results out on their latest 2 samples. Initially, the market sold off quite strongly because I think people were expecting some of those astronomical numbers that we had last time. But then once people absorbed the numbers, I think they realized they weren't quite so bad. What was your feeling from those results that just came out?
Sure. Well, I mean, let's put it this way. The market was expecting a result of something like 10 to 15 grams, and they got 2 results, one of 10.4 and one of 1.5. So the 1.5 one was disappointing. However, when you listen to the explanation of why it was 1.5, i.e. half of it was in dolerite, which was not expected to contain any gold and didn't contain any gold, so that mutes the first one. And the second one was great. I mean, for an open pit, you can get 10 grams open pit, you're laughing. And I would say that upon listening to a further review of the news release, two, the interviews that Quentin has had out there have certainly shed a lot more light on the dimensions of the possible play there. And even today, as we speak, a company called Marindi Metals that has a property 250 kilometers away announced that they found hundreds of nuggets. So their first announcement was they found fine gold. Now they announced they find nuggets. And they make the comment that it would appear to confirm the basin-wide theory. Now, just so your listeners will know, the basin-wide is 250 kilometers by about 250 kilometers. That's a pretty big. That's bigger than Witwatersrand, by the way. So there's a lot of things coming together which should cause people to think very hard about Novo. That notwithstanding the news release and the sell-off, I would say there's lots of good things happening. I've been a buyer recently. That's public information because I have to file insider reports, and I continue to be a buyer here because I think the stock was unfairly treated as a result of the news release, and I just hope that subsequent releases where they're not into the basement rock will provide better assays that will make people think that we have a superlative find here.
Well, it's no secret that the market fears the complexity surrounding establishing an actual resource at Novo. Your standard drilling does not work in this case. And so Quentin is going to have to get quite creative here. The other option is just to go in there and start mining, but then, of course, those multi-billion-dollar market cap figures might not come about if you don't establish just how much gold's there. So what do you think the step forward is going to be on that?
Sure. Well, I mean, I agree that, let's just start mining, and I think Quentin agrees, let's start mining. There's only one problem. You got to get a mining license. And to get a mining license, typically used to have a JORC or 43101 type resource. Well, we're not going to get that with drilling here. How we're going to get it is they're going to do these samples, these bulk tonnage samples, which are spaced out, I gather, with 200 meters apart. And if, let's say, you had 5 of them out and you're out a kilometer and you prove that there's a good amount of gold in each one, and it's sort of continuous, you can apply to the Western Australia Mining Authority and get a mining license. And I think that's exactly what Quentin is trying to do here. Let's just go get the mining license. I think he believes the gold for sure is there, and we'll start mining it. And as either Novo or other companies start doing the same thing, getting bulk samples around the basin, it'll become quite apparent that this is covering a pretty large area, and anybody who wants to do the math is going to come up with some pretty big numbers here, and it's going to be many multiples of tens of millions of ounces if it's basin-wide. So I think Quentin's doing the right thing. They're the leading company there. In order to really find out what we have, we got to get a mining license. So how are we going to get a mining license? We got to do bulk samples, and that's what they're doing.
Eric, another company that you've taken a large stake in is called Pacton. It's a new player in the basin there, and it seems like it's taking a bit of a Pac-Man sort of strategy of just picking up as much ground as possible. I don't think I'm the first person who said the Pac-Man thing. It might have come out of your mouth first, but what's the play on Pacton Gold?
Sure. Well, I bought Pacton. First of all, I know the individuals who are behind it. They're Canadians. And they thought to themselves, well, let's go and just grab some properties down there because, one of the things that seems apparent, the Australian investors and companies seem to not believe anything about these discoveries, not a thing. And they seem quite willing to forego their tenements to concentrate on other things like lithium and iron ore and whatever else, but certainly not conglomerate gold. So Pacton, I think, has had a pretty open field there in terms of acquiring properties. When I first bought it, it had a very low market cap, and they already had 1,200 square kilometers under their control, which is about 12% of what Novo had. And of course, it was probably trading at 1% of what Novo, or 2% of what Novo was trading at. So I thought, well, that's a reasonable punt. So I'll take an interest in it. And in the meantime, I think they have purchased other tenements and are in negotiations. Of course, that's their MO is to go and try to get an interest in as many tenements as they can. So they've been very busy on that front, and hopefully they will acquire other tenements. And I think it's still kind of at fire sale prices, so it could be very interesting if the theory holds that the gold deposition is basin-wide. Any companies involved in this down there, whether it's De Grey, Kairos, Pacton, Marindi, Novo, there's others I'm not thinking of, they should all do well.
Eric, you're also the chairman of Kirkland Lake, which has been one of the best run and best performing, call it large junior or mid-tier gold producers out there. What's going on at Kirkland? What do you see happening there over the next 12 months?
Sure. Well, as you may recall, when I gave the address down in South Carolina, I talked about something called our Fosterville mine, where all of a sudden we're coming out with these grades of like triple-digit gold over significant meters. And I suggested at the time, well, someday we're going to mine it. And what's going to happen to our production when we mine it? And at that time, I think we were slated to produce something like, I'm not sure what the estimate was at the time. Maybe it was 190,000 ounces last year. And we ended up producing, I think the number was like 260, something like that. And that's the same kind of estimate for this year, but we're going to be moving into those higher grade zones. We've said we're going to move into those higher grade zones towards the back half of 18. So if they can hold up in terms of grade and we can develop to get into them, I would suspect that our second half of 18 will be a lot better than the first half of 18. And of course, going into 19, our average grade in the Swan Zone was 60 grams. Well, if you produce from a 60-gram zone versus a 14-gram or 15-gram zone, you get 3 times the gold at no increased cost. So all of a sudden, your margins explode. So Kirkland's did very well last year in terms of earnings. We're doing well. Our first quarter was not going to be our best quarter, but it was okay. And I think the stocks was regarded as cheap versus other gold stocks. So it's coming together. The Canadian operations are doing great. The Macassa mine is a long life mine. We're going to put a new shaft in there, which will increase production quite significantly beginning in 2022. So and of course we have a 20% interest in Novo, which I don't know that the markets really has to pay to own Novo through Kirkland yet. But someday, if it's found out that we're sitting on a major discovery in Australia, hopefully Kirkland finds itself a bit in the catbird seat here and can further increase their involvement in terms of either joint ventures or increasing our interest in the play, whether through other companies or Novo or joint, whatever. There's, of course, lots of things that can happen. So we have that to look forward to.
All right. Well, final question for you, Eric. We were discussing before the call just how cheap things have gotten. You were saying, looking around at some of the names on your screen, you just can't believe how low these stock prices have gotten. What is the best way for somebody with some cash right now to play the space? You think going into these discounted private placements, or what kind of companies would you be looking for?
Sure. Well, I mean, that's a very big question, okay? A lot depends on people's time. I mean, I spend, all my time looking for undervalued situations. If somebody has all the time to look, then you go on the hunt every day. Does somebody have great drill results that the market's not paying for? Do they have great earnings that the market's not paying for? Do they have a great forecast that the market's not paying for? You want to be able to steal opportunity in a way, and you have to be on the hunt for companies that have explosive futures in front of them. And, of course, one of the great things about mining is your fortunes can change quite dramatically in months because of a discovery, because of getting into some new mining zone, or, where the grade doubles, so your production doubles and your stock doubles. And that's one of the great things about the natural resource sector, that when things turn good, the stock prices can move quickly. So you have to seek out that opportunity. If you don't have the time to seek out the opportunity, you got to buy something that's managed by someone who is seeking out the opportunity. And then I can't express an opinion on that. Because I'm not in that area. I do my own thing. So your listeners will have to figure out where those other opportunities are on their own.
Excellent. Well, Eric, thank you as always for your time. The market is now open, so I think you've got a screen to attend to there, but hopefully we can get you back on the program here in the near future.
Anytime, Colin. Always enjoy the chat.
Think you understand the junior mining sector, and you think that the participants in the mining sector, junior mining sector, are good people and kind people, hit the bid.
How violent that term could be, it actually could be quite violent. It could be a rip-your-face-off uranium rally.
And the world is always going to need raw materials. It's going to need copper and gold and nickel and so forth.
Totally destabilized. Hey, Troll, did you hear what's going on in Yemen?